Hi, my name is Jesper Alberts, EUC consultant at ITQ.
Hi, my name is Remi Schipperus and I'm a digital workspace solution engineer at VMware.
And in this ITQlassroom video series, we'll be talking about the installation and setup of mobile threat defense in conjunction with Workspace ONE UEM. This is part one of our video series in which we'll discuss the initial configuration.
Yeah, we got a super handy PDF we can use, and we'll also put in the documentation which we can follow for you guys if you want to install it yourself. But we're gonna walk through it to show you how it works and see what's up.
If you'd be so kind to take it away, Remi.
Yes, no problem. Okay, so one of the first things we have to do is go to the UEM console. For this demo, I already created a couple of roles and admin users just because it takes a lot of time to fill that in.
Yeah.
But one of the first things we need to do and create is an API admin and an admin user.
Yep.
So we go to Groups and Settings, Groups, Admin Groups, and we can go to the list view so we can see what the list is of the admin accounts we already have. And as you can see, we already have a lookout admin. I click on that. If you don't have one, add one. Fill in all the details. The main thing is the first name, or in this case, you can call it lookout, and an email address, because without one, it doesn't work.
Yep.
And one of the pro tips to do is use the API, because if you don't use an API or the certificate, you need to fill in the password and all the details in the lookout tenant. What we can do now is we create a certificate password, which will create eventually a certificate,
yep,
which we can upload to the lookout console, and it connects you everything without you having to fill out everything.
Yeah, and that probably prevents password expiration issues, devices not being secured, things like that.
Exactly.
Yep.
So in this case, we would create a certificate password, click on export, and that's the one we're going to import.
Okay.
That is the first thing we're going to do. So the next thing is to create a smart groups, because you need to assign smart groups to your devices to make sure if a device is in a certain group, it does not or does certain stuff.
Yep.
To create a smart group, we can go to the admin, the groups and settings, groups and assignments. Just have to find it. And then here we can add smart groups. In this case, I already pre-created them, but you can create any of the smart groups you want to.
Yep.
The ones I created here are secure devices and unsecure devices. Very simple. You can make it as difficult if you want to. But what I did is just make one group which has all the devices that are secure, and one group that is not secure. So based on that, we can deploy apps or do cool stuff.
Yeah, security doesn't have to be difficult all the time.
Exactly. In this case, we just have two things.
Yep.
So that's very handy. The second thing is to create tags, because we want to give devices tags based on what's happening on that device.
Yep.
For instance, there's something found or something is good or bad. That is not pre-configured, but it's pre-written on how and what kind of tags you should give. So in the documentation, you can find all the tags that we can assign to devices. We just have to go to there.
And it's just a minor copy-paste exercise, basically.
It's a copy-paste exercise. That's why I'm not going to do it now. But we go to all settings, devices and users, then advanced, and we can see all our tags. Here we can see we have a couple of tags already in there, and now we have the MTD tags that I created and that are in the documentation. So
yep,
we just have to copy-paste them. We won't do it now because that takes more time than I want. So these are all the tags that we want. So we have a admin account,
yep,
we have a group, and we have the tags in our UEM console. That's the main part we need to configure.
Okay.
And we got that certificate that we can upload to the lookout console.
Yeah. So we're basically done in the UEM console for now.
For now, we are
Okay.
done. There's one last thing we can do at the end, but we'll keep that to the end. So the other thing is we need a lookout console, because without a lookout console, we don't have any mobile threat defense.
No.
So we need to log in with our details, make sure we have one, and we can sign in. And this is our dashboard. So this will give all the devices in our, globally, all the devices that Lookout is protecting, which is kind of cool to see. But also the deployment status in your tenant. So you can see we have a couple of devices already deployed. We have a couple of devices that are disconnected, which we will see in a normal environment as well. But the big part is the integration.
Yep.
So we click on integration and we can choose 3 different parts. We can make an Azure integration, We can do a Microsoft Defender integration, and of course a Workspace ONE integration, which is the MDM connector, which is the one that we're going to use.
Okay.
So as you can see, we already have a couple of these integrated. I'm going to click mine because we pre-configured this, but there's a couple of things we need to fill in. Of course, we need to give it a name, just so we know which MDM we're using. We need the URL. In this case, we use CN 1300, but you can use the URL that you're using.
So that's basically the administration URL customers already using.
Yeah, which you probably have to fill in for all your stuff as well. So I hope you know that.
Should be well known.
Yeah, and then we have the handy one. So the certificate authentication. So instead of using basic authentication where we need to fill in a password and make sure that the password is right and also when it expires, we can just use a certificate which does the integration for you. If you're using a proxy, you can use proxy settings here as well. In this case, we don't need it. And then the device enrollment. What kind of devices do we want to enroll? And this is based on the smart groups we created in UEM. What I have done is I've done it for all devices. So all the devices in my my estate, my tenant, will have Lookout or will have mobile threat defense. So in this case, I click all devices, but you can also create another group and only do it for a subset of those devices.
Yeah, for example, if you're doing a POC or only targeting a specific set of devices with specific criteria, you can just tailor-made that smart group that you created earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Which is always handy to do. There's one toggle what you can do. It's automatically push activation notifications to Workspace ONE managed devices. That means it will push the activation automatically to the devices for you without you having to push it manually, which is one thing we want to have on, because the more we have on and automatically, the less we have to do as IT managers if you're an IT manager doing this. And then of course we need to sync the state. So what is the state of the device? Is it vulnerable? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it still pending to the device, but is it working already? And that's based on the tags we have synchronized with UEM. So we have entity pending, entity activated, and those are all in the documentation as well. You just need to turn them on and click the tag you want to assign to that certain status. And that's it. And we could use an error email recipient. That means if there's any errors with the enrollment, we can use the admin email address to send emails to there. But in this case, we don't use it. The last thing you can do is if you have multiple MDMs or multiple people who are using the same console, you can automatically assign new devices to a certain console. So in this case, we're choosing Remi because that's my device.
Makes sense.
It's all connected to my UEM tenant, and we click on save, and everything is okay. And that's basically the biggest part of Lookout.
That's pretty easy.
You need the UEM console configured with the groups, you need the tags, you need an admin that is authorized with a certificate, and then you need to configure this. I think it's now 7 minutes in. So
probably. That's pretty fast and easy.
So we got 90% of the integration done. We got the Lookout console configured, we got the UEM configured, which is great, but then we need to make sure it also goes to the endpoints. And there's two versions to do, or two things to do. It's either the Lookout for Work app or it's the Intelligent Hub. 90% of the requirements are met with the Intelligent Hub integration, but we have to look to the documentation what kind of integrations you want and what is handiest for you. 90% is Intelligent Hub.
And it's obviously still under construction, so things will change, features will be added.
Exactly. So one thing we're going to do in our environment is we're going to bring it to the Intelligent Hub app. One of the major handy things is that it's integrated in Intelligent Hub, saves you an extra application to deploy, saves you an application to update, to make sure it works, to test. It's just integrated into our Intelligent Hub, so integrated into all the devices that are using Intelligent Hub, obviously only the mobile devices. There's one thing we have to do. If we go to groups and settings, and then all settings and applications, or apps, we go to settings and policies, and then our settings, and we can see there's a custom setting we can add. That's the only thing we have to do. I'm going to copy paste it from my notes because it saves me copy and pasting it from the documentation.
Yep.
But there's one custom setting. We need the enrollment code. Obviously, there's some code you need to verify what kind of tenant you're using for mobile threat defense. And we can find it in the Lookout for Work app as well. So we can click on enroll devices, enroll with code, and then copy paste that code and make sure that's the right one you're using for your tenant.
Yep.
So as you can see, it's the same code here. We're going to blur it out for video purposes. But that's the only configuration you need to do. And that's it. We click on save and save successfully. And that's the whole integration we need for mobile threat defense.
That's easy.
Cannot be simpler.
Nope. Agreed.
So one of the things we can now do is we can check the device and see if it's actually working. It's always great to see if stuff actually works. So we have an iPad which has Intelligent Hub on there. It's already enrolled, but for purposes I just want to go to the configure as well. And we can see now this is an iPad. We don't see anything for mobile threat defense,
nope.
But we should be able to either refresh it or restart the application. Yep, and it's working. So you can see now in your screen, we have mobile threat defense. Is your device is safe? It's great. My device is fine.
Yep.
And we can see that everything is good.
Great.
So that's the mobile threat integration. It's for the end user, just Intelligent Hub where they consume their applications that they use everywhere. It's for IT to implement in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
And then eventually you'll see that mobile threat defense is integrated. And based on device settings, if it's safe or not, we can do a lot of cool stuff. But if the device is safe, you're good to go.
Everyone's happy, right? It's easy to integrate. I think it's great that it integrates with the Intelligent Hub. It's the aim is to have it as a one-stop shop, and this completely adds to that. So that's great.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the whole integration.
Up and running.
Up and running.
Cool. So I think this concludes our first video in the Mobile Threat Defense series. Thank you so much for watching this one, and we hope to see you in part 2 where we dive deeper into the possibilities with Mobile Threat Defense. Remi, thank you for this one.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.